Now, I've rented this Ghibli here in Nashville, Tennessee, using a service called Turo, which
I
is
like
a
how he
company
rented
that's
this dude's
sort of like
Ghibli just to
Airbnb for
roast
cars.
it.
You get to rent other people. The 550i has a blind spot monitoring system. Does the Ghibli?
Yeah, it does. You can actually see it there. It's the triangle.
The 550i has a forward collision warning system. Does the Ghibli?
Yep. It's got that too.
Actually, I take that back. Shift into reverse and you'll notice a very poor resolution backup camera pop up on the screen. Of course, you'd get a better backup camera in a Chevy Sonic.
Now, I'm not sure how clear this is going to be on camera here, but this backup camera is actually in pretty good quality if you were to actually look at it.
Now, Maserati will tell you that I'm wrong because they added some, but not all, of these features for 2016, and that's true, but isn't that kind of the point?
I mean, Doug is right here as well. Even though Maserati did add a lot of those features that he mentioned in the video, it's true that they probably should have been there in the first place at the time of the Ghibli's release.
When you get inside the Maserati Ghibli, an $80,000 luxury sedan, you're confronted with a lot of switches and buttons borrowed straight out of the $22,000 Dodge Dart compact car. I'm serious. For example, take a look at the door panel with the window switches, the power locks, and the mirror controls. Those are literally lifted straight out of the Dodge Dart. The same thing goes for the headlight switch, the turn signal stalk, and the start-stop button. That's pretty much everything you press and touch just about every time you get inside the car.
Yeah, so these buttons are still here.
The Maserati's turn signal lever, it's borrowed straight out of the Jeep Cherokee, the Dodge Dart, etc. And it works just fine in those cars, but in this one, there's a little conflict because the Maserati has these big metal shift paddles, as it should, being a performance car. So when you go to use this dog, you're always hitting the shift paddle with your fingers when you're really just trying to
So this
put on the
cracks me up. It's like watching an infomercial. So, I mean, I have never had this be an issue for me personally. I have my fingers on the shift paddle while I'm driving. It's so easy to just reach back and flick it on and off.
My second annoyance is that the controls for the heated seats and the ventilated seats aren't actual buttons. They're integrated into the infotainment system. This is not a problem unique to the Ghibli, but it is incredibly bad design. Automakers, listen up. If we want to turn on heated seats, I just want to push a button.
So that's fair enough, and yeah, Maserati still does this with the touchscreen as well, but honestly, it's not a huge deal.
You can adjust a little lever on the screen. Time to stick a tube of toothpaste in a Maserati panel gap. All right, here we go. It fell out. It's too big. We need a bigger tube of toothpaste. There we go. Tube of toothpaste in a Maserati panel gap.
Yeah, so that panel gap is still there too, but honestly, you're never going to care about this. I promise you, you are not going to care that that is there.
Adding to the claustrophobic feeling, roll down the window, and this is only as far as it goes down. This is all the way down. Look at this. I got like 6 inches of window over here. Look how claustrophobic this feels. Get me out of here!
Yep, the windows still only go about that low as well.
The final and perhaps most infuriating detail in the Ghibli is the shift lever. My God, the shift lever. Okay, you have it in park. You put your foot on the brake and then you pull it. And if you pull it even a little bit, it goes all the way to drive. So then you push it back up to put it in reverse and it goes back into park. You try to push it a little bit less and you're in neutral. Then you push it a little bit more back up and you're back in park. I've never in my entire life seen a gear lever that is this infuriating to use. I can't believe anybody would have possibly ever signed off on this gear lever. There are also periods where it decides that it's just not going to let you shift at the moment, and then it kind of locks you out from moving out of any gear for a second or two and until it's ready.
So Doug is right about the gear lever. I also noted issues with it where sometimes it would refuse to move, or I would shift it into park and it wouldn't go to park. It would go to reverse, and then you'd have to do it again for it to go to park. It can be a little tedious, but honestly, you don't run into that situation enough to the point where it really, really bothers you. That's been my experience anyway.
The first thing you notice when you get inside, you push the starter button, it sounds cool. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't. Maserati knows how to do engine sounds, and this car is no different. It sounds really good, which is impressive because this is, at the end of the day, just a V6. And from a sound perspective, it really makes the most of it. It's good inside, but it's really good outside. It sounds great.
So here's a cold start of the Ghibli. First we're going to be normal, and then I'm going to switch it to sport.
However, one of the things I've noticed is that the ride quality in this car is quite uncomfortable. It is not a comfortable car. The ride is tuned for, sporty suspension, so it's a little bit stiffer than most of the other cars.
I actually disagree with Doug here. So I actually think the ride is pretty comfortable. And this is coming from somebody that dailied a Cadillac ATS for 4 years. And honestly, I think the level of comfort between the two is pretty similar. The Cadillac might be a bit better, but honestly, I don't notice a huge difference. And honestly, this car is my favorite daily driver of the two.
But that guy just stared at me like, oh, you got a Maserati. And that's the thing. I mean, you got to kind of decide about this car. You're looking at a 550i, you probably realize, most people who look at this car probably realize that the BMW, the Mercedes, they're all better. But they're not Maseratis. And for whatever cachet the Maserati name still carries, that's important to people.
Yeah, so for what it's worth, Maseratis get a lot of attention. The Ghibli that I drive gets a lot of attention. I have people pull up to me at stoplights and compliment the car. I have people come across the street and compliment the car. I get a lot of compliments on this car. I've even had people take pictures of the car, which is weird because I've never had that happen to me personally before, but it's funny to actually see that happening. But yeah, ultimately for the price you pay on the vehicle, which you can get these cars for a very, very good value, they get a lot of attention. It's almost like you're driving a supercar without actually driving a supercar. You do get a lot of looks, you get a lot of attention, and you get all of that at a very, very good price point too. So if that's something you're interested in, you'll certainly get it with a Ghibli, depending of course on where you live. Now, if you live on like Rodeo Drive, where everybody's driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris, you're probably not going to get a lot of attention in your Maserati. On the other hand, if you live where I do, where I see a Maserati maybe once a week, maybe every other week, it really depends. I see a lot more Porsches than I do Maseratis, so when people see a Maserati, it's like a big deal. Now, I said it was like owning a supercar. Not actually true. If you're driving a supercar, you're going to get the attention that you get in this car times about 1,000. And again, that same attention is going to apply to this negative, which is everybody wants to race you. Now, I say everybody. I don't mean everybody, but I've had so many people that wanted to race me, that would pull up to me at a stoplight, try to race me. I've had people pull up to me on the highway, pull right to the lane next to me, roll down their window, and yell across the lane to try to get me to race them. I mean, you'll have people that are racing you, and you don't even realize you're racing them until they fly by you.
Ship took off, zigzagging and shit so no one could pass. Another car didn't even know he was racing.
But that's an example of attention on, the negative side of the spectrum, assuming you don't actually want to race people.
Now, handling is very good. I'm not going to just solely bash this car. Handling is quite good. It's impressive.
So yeah, handling this car is really, really good. No complaints there. If I have to have any gripe, it is high speeds in this car and cornering. So particularly with cornering, the car feels very dodgy. It feels like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. if you're cornering very fast or you're going a very high speed and you're about to take a corner. It feels very, very dodgy. It handles straightaways and straight stretches of road like a highway or freeway really good. I have no complaints whatsoever there. But at the end of the day, I think we just have to realize, and I have to realize, that the Ghibli just wasn't built for that, and that's okay. Regardless of how many people want to race you, it is ultimately a luxury sedan.
Another benefit, the market seems to agree with me about the Ghibli's faults, because if you look on AutoTrader at used Ghibli models, you'll find that early ones are starting to creep into the $30,000 range. Now, I don't think this is a very good car for 80 grand, but even I have to admit it starts to get appealing for about 35 grand.
So honestly, if you can get this car at a pretty good deal, we're talking like in the 40,000, like maybe the low 40,000 range, maybe the high 30,000s with not too bad mileage. Like we're talking, if you can get the mileage like in the 15 to 20,000 range and you can get it for that price point, I think the car becomes pretty attractive. You know, it's been broken in, you know, like the history with it at that point in time. It's a well broken in car. You know, the history of it, you know, how often you can likely expect to need repairs on this car. Typically that's what I do. If I'm buying a used car, and typically I will always buy a used car, I like the car to be broken in, 10,000 plus miles at least, so you can get something of a history on it. Car's not bad if you're going to use it for a daily, if you don't mind paying for the gas. Personally, insurance is pretty expensive for me. I probably need to switch it. So I pay like $330 in insurance. I probably need to switch that. I pay about $600 a month for the car. So I pay about $930 a month for this car. So if you don't mind that price point, again, you can probably get the insurance a lot lower. I'm definitely overpaying for that. And then too, if you don't mind paying for things like the gas, which can, you know, you might end up paying almost $300 a month for gas, depending on how often you drive this car. So, I mean, you're going to be looking at monthly costs probably a bit over $1,100 a month. And then you also do need to make sure you have some budget for repairs, because certain repairs on cars like a Maserati, they're just not particularly cheap. So you do want to make sure you have some money for that as well. This car, honestly, for as long as I've had it, has held up really, really well. So I bought this car in December. I've had it for about 8 months now, and I've had absolutely no issues with it. The check engine light came on one time, but it honestly, it just went away. I haven't driven it that much. I've maybe put a little over 4,000 miles on it so far. I do remote work, so I'm not really driving it too much per day. Maybe 20 miles per day. Maybe a little more on the weekends, but that's about it. I think the Ghibli is a great daily driver. It's been my favorite daily driver so far. And that's all I've got to say. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.
As an added bonus, here's a secret menu item on the key fob. If you shut your Maserati off, lock it, and double tap and hold the unlock button on the key fob, it'll roll down all the windows for as long as you hold it.